Before I get this video underway, I want to let those of you who've never played Tomb Raider know that I'm going to give away a lot of spoilers. More spoilers than you can count on your fingers and toes. I'm going to go into great detail about levels, enemies, the story, and everything in between. If you intend to play this absolute classic at some point, and I encourage you to do so because it is a real gem of the 90s, I'd advise you don't watch this video and go do that instead. But if you don't care either way, or you already know the game's ins and outs, sit down, relax, and enjoy this bloody video. Hey everyone, Tori here, and oh my gosh, would you look at this? It's a history video! Haven't seen one of them in yonks. Yep, it's about time I started a new one, and what better series to look into than one I hold very close to my heart. Well, okay, it's actually only the first two games I've really played enough to talk about them. I could never finish the third game due to its obscene difficulty spike and lack of feckin' checkpoints. Come on! Die! Please die! And then I pretty much carry the series on from Angel of Darkness. Until I get to the reboots because not my Lara, but I do hope to rectify this as the history series goes on. If I get that far, of course, we all know my penchant for giving up on things. So yeah, I'm not the most dedicated fan of the Tomb Raider series, but the few games I have played to death, I did so from a very early age and pretty much grew up on them. I think I've come back to the first game at least once every year, just to give the old nostalgia vibes a tingle, you know? Now, like my previous history videos, I'm going to tackle one game at a time, because I feel one video for an entire series doesn't do it justice. There's so much to mention in Tomb Raider, not only gameplay-wise, but you have the mythology surrounding the stories, all those special little secrets to find, and Lara's background and family history, which changes a lot throughout the series with each new developer, which conveniently brings me onto the first thing I want to talk about, the development of Tomb Raider 1. The adventures of Lara Croft were conceived way back in 1993 by a small developer known as Core Design, who were based in Derby, England. Tomb Raider wasn't their first rodeo, and they had in fact worked on a number of previous titles, mainly for the Atari ST, Amiga, and various Sega consoles. But nothing shot them to fame quite like Lara did. Tomb Raider was developed by a team of just 6 people: Neil Boyd, Paul Douglas, Toby Gard, Heather Gibson, Jason Gosling, and Gavin Rummery. Toby Gard is the man credited for creating Lara Croft herself, which is an interesting story on its own. Back in 2006, Gard spoke to British newspaper The Guardian about the development of Tomb Raider and Lara Croft herself. After being asked how many designs he scrapped before settling on Lara's iconic design, he stated, "About 4 or 5. My initial design was a guy in some tombs, but when I started doing proper designs, the female character just worked better." A good thing too, as co-founder of Core Design, Jeremy Heath Smith, mentions the original male character during the Unlock the Past, a retrospective Tomb Raider documentary, and the character sounds a little derivative of another famed archaeologist explorer.
He said, well, I fancied doing this game in pyramids. And I said, yeah, that's kind of cool. And he's got this guy on the screen with a whip and a hat. And I said, that's why he's bloody Indiana Jones. I mean, you know, you can't do this.
So began the quest to design the character into something truly original. The leading man underwent, well, a sex change.
Some of the early concept art for the character is preserved on various websites, such as Raiding the Globe. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check it out, as they cover all the games in the series, but here are a few examples. This is one of the designs for Gard's male character, but it was scrapped in favour of a dark-haired South American woman known as Laura Cruz, with her design being inspired by late 80s, early 90s singer Nina Cherry. However, this was again changed due to core design wanting a more English character, hoity-toity. The way they came up with the new name is rather amusing, however, as described by Gard.
The name Croft came out of the phone book. The team sat down and the writer came down with the phone book and just went through the pages and called out things that caught our eye, and we go, oh, no.
Several names were put to a vote. Lara Croft took first place.
Despite the work that had been put into Tomb Raider so far, Sony USA weren't impressed with what core design initially presented them with and asked for a better game, forcing the team to work long days and nights and even weekends to desperately try to create the game that Sony wanted. Fortunately for core design, they had Gavin Rummery on their team who came up with a brand new tool to create the iconic levels of Tomb Raider.
I created this tool called Room Edit because the whole game was set in tombs and it seemed a very good idea. We built rooms connected through a doorway into another room. I was thinking like Tutankhamun's tomb, things like that. That's the kind of thing we'd be doing.
The results? A groundbreaking and innovative system of grids and complex levels. The intuitive control system allowed a vast set of athletic moves and mobility through water, which would blow popular 2D side-scrollers of the time out of the water.
This eventually won over the hearts of Sony and even Sega, with the game finished and ready for release on both the Sony PlayStation and Sega Saturn in October 1996. Whilst core design and their parent company, Eidos, had expected the game to do fairly well, given its strong showing at E3 1996, nobody predicted the utter explosion of popularity Tomb Raider would cause. Eidos had only planned for sales of 100,000 units, which of course sold out in the blink of an eye, prompting the company to hastily make hundreds of thousands more copies. By the end of the hype, Tomb Raider had sold 7.5 million copies worldwide. During the Guardian interview, Toby Gard also talked about what he thought made Lara such a hit, stating, "She had a real difference to the game characters of the time. Compared to the burly men shooting guns, she had a real appeal. She was mysterious and had a danger about her. This gave her a real difference to other female game characters that were basically sex objects." Unfortunately, core design had other plans for the lovely Lara, plans Gard was not happy with, which prompted him to leave the company at the height of Tomb Raider's success.
But not everyone decided to share in the riches. In 1997, at the height of Tomb Raider's commercial success, Lara's creator decided to leave the company.
Because a character like Lara Croft is essentially an asset for a company, there's always going to be opportunities for sorts of cross-promotional stuff. I certainly had a major problem with the way that Lara was being portrayed in the beginning of the franchise. I don't think that the character would ever get into Maxim-style poses.
Lara was his baby, and then people got on top of it and they suddenly went, right, we're going to do it this, we're going to do that. And he really resented that, and he really didn't like that. That really upset him a lot.
As sad as his fellow designers were to see him go, parent company Eidos knew they needed to turn this series into a moneymaker, and shortly after the release of the first game, core design began work on a second, which we'll go into in a future video. So now we know more or less the development of the first game, I think we should look into the backstory of Lara herself, before she began her search for the Scion. So in this version of Tomb Raider, because the story changes more times than the series has bloody developers, I swear, Lara started life as the aristocratic daughter of Lord Henchingly Croft. She did all the things a daughter of nobility would do, I suppose, such as attending a posh boarding school, and even a Swiss finishing school. At least as far as being obscenely rich goes, her life was very much the standard, and there were no urges to break into tombs or shoot endangered species in sight for young Lara, not until a certain incident that would change her life forever. At age 21, Lara was involved in a plane crash that left her the sole survivor and stranded in the Himalayan mountains. Even with little to no prior survival knowledge, she kept herself alive for 2 weeks and managed to stumble into the village of Tokakaribi. The experience had completely changed her view of the world, and she no longer felt comfortable in the stuffy upper classes of society, developing a desire, or perhaps even a need, to go and explore the world on her own. She spent 8 years furthering her knowledge on ancient civilizations, tomb locations, and developing her gun skills to kill all the mythical and ancient creatures she'd come across, just like a proper archaeologist, you know? Her sudden 180 in lifestyle left her family no choice but to abandon her and cut out the vast fortune that was tied to the Croft name. In order to fund her future expeditions, Lara turned to writing about her adventures and discoveries and got quite a name for herself by doing so. And the rest, as they say, is Tomb Raider history. Now, before our first adventure with everybody's favourite female protagonist can begin, we're given some vague pre-events to the game. In Los Alamos, New Mexico, an explosion occurs from what looks like a nuclear blast, which sends a strange, ornate disc flying through the sky and landing in front of the camera. The disc then opens up to reveal somebody in suspended animation. We then cut to the Imperial Hotel in present-day Calcutta, or Kolkata as it's now known. Our girl Lara is chilling out in this Imperial Hotel, presumably having a wee break from killing yet another rare and up until now thought mythical creature. Seriously, how does she not get into trouble for this stuff? Is nobody speaking out against her about this senseless murder? Does nobody care about poor Bigfoot? Lara's rest and relaxation is short-lived, however, when an American named Larson turns up on behalf of his boss, Natla, to give Lara a new adventure.
Though truth is, it ain't me that wants you.
Oh?
No, Miss Jacqueline Natla does. From Natla Technologies. You know, creator of all things bright and beautiful.
Seal it, Larson.
Wait. Why is she looking off-screen to tell Larson to pipe down? Oh, those 1996 animations.
Feast your eyes on this, Lara. How does that make your wallet rumble?
I'm sorry. I only play for sport.
Then you'll like a big park. Peru, vast mountain ranges to cover, sheer walls of ice, rocky crags, savage winds, and there's this little trinket. An age-old artifact of mystical power is buried in the unfound tomb of Qualapec. That's my interest. You could leave tomorrow. Are you busy tomorrow?
Yay, it's a new adventure! So Lara goes strutting off into the mountains of Peru in a pair of hot pants and a tank top, no less. I'm starting to wonder if she really is human by this point. Lara and El Guido, who's wearing much more suitable attire for the trip, arrive at a large door, which Lara scales in order to press the cliched secret button on the engraving. How do they always know there's a secret button? Right, this part of the cutscene I'm actually going to shut up for, because this is one of my favourite openings of all time, and every time I watch this I get chills. So, enjoy! And now we can finally control Lara. But before I get started talking about said controls and the level we're in, I just want to take a moment to point something out that a friend told me a number of years ago about the region differences. I obviously had the PAL version of Tomb Raider as a kid because I lived in the UK. I didn't even realise there were different versions of games for the US, Japan and whatnot. Whenever I controlled Lara in said PAL version, she always felt rather floaty, I think is the best way I can put it. But I assume this was just how the game was designed. After all, it was made by a UK-based team, surely this was their intention? When you put the PAL and NTSC versions together, however, you notice the difference, like really notice. In the PAL version, she feels floaty, as I said, but if you've played the NTSC version first, or just know that one better, she looks sluggish in PAL. Now, I'm not an expert on this stuff, and if anyone has a more correct explanation, please let me know in the comments. But from what I've read, the reason for this is because the PAL version is a poor optimization, running about 17% slower than the NTSC version, so Lara's animations and PAL are slower than they are in NTSC. This was apparently an issue that plagued many PAL versions of games at the time, and caused many a gamer to import NTSC consoles or mod their PAL console instead. Like I said though, it could have been intentional. During the Guardian interview I mentioned earlier, Toby Gard did state, "I was very keen to get Lara to animate properly, which no one else at the time was doing. This made her move slowly, but look realistic, which helped players empathise with her." Still, I don't like it, and I have to say the NTSC version feels so much better when controlling Lara for this reason. Back on track, so yes, Lara has set foot in the caves level, the first level of the game, and basically a tutorial area to get the player used to moving Miss Croft and using her weapons. Controls are very basic in Tomb Raider, and, even though I'm playing the PC Steam version for this video, I'll just be referring to the PlayStation controls as I know them better. And trust me, you don't want to see me play with PC controls. Seriously, anyone who's played Tomb Raider with them, especially if you finish the game doing so, you're either extremely dexterous or a masochist. Possibly both. I don't know, maybe it's because I have tiny Trump hands, but the idea of jumping away from danger with the Alt key, trying to hit R to roll, while pressing spacebar simultaneously to draw my weapons, and desperately fumbling for the control key to start shooting whatever's about to rip my face off, yeah, it doesn't appeal to me. So yes, the PlayStation controls, which are thankfully much simpler, go as follows. The D-pad to do your moving forward, hopping backwards, or turning left and right. Sidestep left or right with L2 and R2 respectively, walk by holding down R1, very useful so you don't charge Lara off a cliff, square to jump or swim in water, circle to do a 180 roll, triangle to draw your weapons, and X for various actions such as shooting guns, picking up items or pulling levers. And then these button controls can be combined together to make Lara do even more, such as grabbing ledges, shimmying, jumping in various directions, going through the inventory, looking around and so on and so forth. There are even fun little secret moves you can do, such as the swan dive by holding down R1, square and up on the D-pad. Hilarious if you want to watch Lara gracefully jump off a tall ledge and go splat at the bottom. And of course there's the handstand maneuver, performed by pulling up from a ledge and pressing R1 and up on the D-pad again. It's completely pointless, but hey, it looks cool. Now, there is one major difference between the PlayStation and PC version that I find tends to divide the player base, and that's of course the means of saving the game. In the PlayStation version of Tomb Raider, the only way you can save is by walking up to a save crystal and using it there and then. These crystals are few and far between, which is fine for the first few levels, but when you start getting to the really tough and long-winded ones, if you're like me, you're gonna hate this system basically. Now, I have had people have a go at me because in their eyes, I wasn't playing the game the way it was meant to be played, but seeing as I'm one of those people who despise backtracking through 50 minutes of gameplay, simply because of a tricky jump that cost Lara her life, I'm gonna say the PC version save system is far superior. Core design did try and cater to both sets of people as the games went on, but we'll talk about that in future videos. Okay, so before I move on to discussing level design and whatnot, I just want to show you this nifty little video of pre-alpha footage of Tomb Raider. It's quite interesting to watch because the game controls very differently to the official release version. For example, instead of jumping straight up into the air when stood still and not pushing in any direction, Lara would swing her arms and launch herself forwards, no D-pad button necessary. Not only that, but she could pull out her pistols and dual aim at 2 different enemies at once. Perhaps the most interesting thing of note, however, is the camera system. In the Tomb Raider we know, you just hold down L1 and use the D-pad to look around. In this pre-alpha footage, however, you can see the camera can be zoomed in and out and panned, independent of Lara. As awesome as that sounds, especially in terms of getting some nifty views of Lara and those glorious boobies, I'm sure it would have gotten disorientating and finicky pretty fast. One last thing to mention in this pre-alpha footage is the design of Lara herself. While most of her outfit is identical to the official release Lara, you'll notice she's not only sporting those red-tinted sunglasses from the cutscenes, but she even has a braid. In fact, 1996 Lara was supposed to have a lovely brunette braid flowing off the back of her head. just like she did in future games. Unfortunately, the developers realised it didn't look quite as good as they hoped and decided to remove it before final release. During an interview with British magazine Retro Gamer, programmer Gavin Rummery stated, "It had been dropped from the original because it just didn't work properly with all the acrobatic moves. It was more like she had an electric eel attached to her head that had a life of its own. But on Tomb Raider 2, I came up with a way to get it working and was really pleased by how natural it looked." Right, we've talked long enough about controls and whatnot. It's time for the caves. The caves of the Peruvian mountains. The caves with which Lara will begin yet another mass extinction of various species of animals. This is a very simple level with basic platforming and puzzles to get you into the swing of things. Now, something I do love about this game is the attention to detail. The first thing I noticed when playing through this level for the first time ever as a kid was the paw prints in the snow. I was too dumb to realise it at the time, but this is obviously the tracks left behind by the wolves that just attacked Lara and the ex-guide mere seconds ago. It sounds weird to say, but you just don't notice it until you do. Of course, if you're too busy goggling at the paw prints, you may take some damage from the first trap of the game. I love the fact that even though these traps are from ancient times, the creators not only invented motion sensing technology, but made sure it worked thousands of years later. I suppose that is 90s gaming development for you. Let's throw logic out the window in favour of magic floating swords that travel towards Lara's location. Now, we don't need to explain how it works, the players don't care about that. And actually, you know what? They're right. We don't, do we? We just play the game and accept it for what it is. So, if you survive the perilous pointy pokers, and to be honest, if you don't, I'd turn the game off now because it's only going to get worse, you'll move into the main area of the caves. If you're not exploring every nook and cranny this level has to offer, you probably won't find the first secret of the game, hidden away in a far corner. Now, every level in every Tomb Raider game, apart from Angel of Darkness, has secrets to find, and 1996's Tomb Raider has plenty of them. Some just require you to do a bit of jumping here and there, others require puzzles to be solved, and some are so downright irritating that it'll be a miracle if you collect the damn thing before your TV screen ends up with a controller-shaped hole in it. You'll know you found a secret as the game will notify you with a bring audio cue. And usually there'll be an item of some sort to collect, be it a medikit, ammo, or maybe even a shiny new gun. That's something I want to talk about actually. The audio cues and soundtrack in this game are fantastic. I would actually go as far as to say it's my favourite of any game ever. Let's just pretend Shadow of the Colossus doesn't exist. Nathan McCree, the composer for the first 3 Tomb Raider games, did a stellar job bringing the feeling of exploring a tomb, dodging boulders, and shooting mummies to life with his amazing soundtrack. And for me, the best track has to be this theme. If you've played Tomb Raider before, you know what it means. Shit is gonna go down. And if you haven't played or even seen anyone play the first game, it's quite obvious what this theme signifies. Danger, Lara Croft, you are in danger! Another brilliant track if you want something slightly calmer is the main theme of the game. Mysterious, grandiose, and of course nostalgic are the words that come to mind for me when listening to this track. Honestly, if I was better at describing music, I'd go on about Nathan McCree's work on the game for hours. But instead, I implore those of you who've never heard his soundtrack to check it out on YouTube. You will not be disappointed. Right, just like where the secrets are located, I got a little bit off track there. Carrying on further through the caves, and you'll come across the first enemy of the game. Now, I could be wrong on me animal knowledge, but I don't think bats are aggressive to people. Maybe these ones know who Lara is, though, and they're trying to stop her before she wipes out yet another species. Anyway, this gives the player ample opportunity to practice their shooting skills, and the bats go down fairly quickly with just 1 or 2 shots. Not much happens for a little while after this. Enter a large cavern, jump down a pit, pull a lever, and you'll hear another one of those nifty Tomb Raider audio cues for danger.
Watch out!
I feel like it would have been better used once you reach the danger floofs. I suppose the game is still trying to ease you in, just not very subtly. Watch out now, there's an enemy in here, you don't want it to bite your bum! So yes, a bit of climbing and you'll find 2 hungry wolves just waiting to chew Lara's leg off. If you're new to the game, it can be daunting to see the murderous puppies hurtling towards you, but trust me, it gets far worse. I mean, make Lara do backflips and stuff while shooting, it's fine. For real though, most of the enemies in this game are a joke if you get to grips with the jumping back and forth while shooting. Virtually nothing can touch you while you're doing this. After crossing the bridges, you'll come to an area with a pit to jump over. This is probably the first jump scare of the game for many people, including myself, because if you accidentally fall in the pit, or choose to jump down, guess what's waiting for you at the bottom? There's no reason to come down here unless you really want that sweet medikit the bear was guarding, but it does show you an example of a floor-based puzzle. Stand on the switch, and a time door magically opens.
Terrific.
This leads you back into the bridge room where you can continue on where you left off. Another timed door puzzle stands in your way, at least I think it's timed, I really can't remember anymore because it's not that hard to do. Another one of those creepy audio cues will play when you do pull the lever, presumably to warn you of the dart traps on the stairs, but then another track kicks in. My god, slow down game. What? One wolf? Now you're just taking the piss. Yep, the developers really want to drum it in your head that danger is around every corner. It could be one measly little doggo, it could be a friggin' mob of angry mummies wanting to tear Lara a new one. And as simple as this level is, and perhaps a little bit boring, it does give you a hint of what's to come. So pull that lever, dodge the darts and hop on through to the second level. City of Vilcabamba. Yes, the city thought lost to time, even though it isn't. According to Wikipedia, the city was rediscovered in 1911, and the area confirmed as the site of Vilcabamba in 1964, so... Maybe history played out differently in the Tomb Raider universe. Maybe the developers didn't do their research, who knows? But for this story, right now, Lara has rediscovered the city for herself. As soon as you walk Lara through those double doors, be prepared for many angry animals. Wolves, bats, bears, they're all over the place in this maze of corridors and tiny rooms. Now, as I've played Tomb Raider so often, this level doesn't bother me as much as it used to, because I know it more or less off by heart. But my goodness, when I was a kid I hated this place. For 5-year-old me, it was confusing to navigate, the bear made me shit myself every time he came out the stables, and I never knew what I was supposed to do in that water section. The first water section of the game, may I add. But yeah, this level basically boils down to pull levers, find key items, and jump around a lot. It's fairly boring, and if it wasn't for the fact I was doing this for a history video and needed the footage, I'd just level skip it. But seeing as I do have me completing it on record...
Oh, let's break it down!
Now, I did this in a different order, as I know the level in and out, but the first area most people explore is the pool, because yay, swimming! It's bigger than you think, ha ha ha, with a tunnel leading under the city and splitting in 2 directions. It's easy to waste time down here and forget that poor Lara needs to surface once in a while for air. Yes, many a Lara has lost their lives to my incompetence in this pool, which is made even more hilarious by the fact there's no real need to be down here unless you're after the secrets. But 5-year-old me knew no better, desperate to search every nook and cranny Vilcabamba had to offer. If secrets aren't your thing, however, what you should be doing is searching on land for a door with a lever next to it, which will set you on a chain of jumping, grabbing ledges, pushing stuff, and nicking things that don't belong to you. Oh, by the way, the shoving boxes thing will be especially prevalent in Tomb Raider 1, so get used to it. Most block puzzles aren't too bad, but there is one I do remember being particularly tedious. Actually, maybe two. We'll get to them later. So, use the key you found on your jumping and shoving quest, and head into the next room, a cave area inhabited by yet more wolfy boys. What are these guys eating, by the way? In front of Lara will be a temple thing. I'm not exactly sure what it's supposed to be, especially given the interior, but hey, I'm digging the decor. I have to say, the textures in this game are phenomenal, especially for a game made in 1996. Yeah, okay, they're not of the highest quality when compared to today's games, and people have even gone out their way to make some brilliant texture packs for the game. But me, I personally prefer the original look. You can tell a lot of care and attention to detail went into each part of this level, and it's almost impossible to tell that the textures are repeating patterns, it's that seamless. And this is actually the reason I've not been keen on texture packs for Tomb Raider, or really any game for that matter. Like I said, they are fantastic to look at, but I often find the designer either puts in so much detail that the repeating pattern becomes fairly obvious, or for some reason, the designer decides to darken everything in the room, which really takes away from the colour and vibrancy each level of Tomb Raider has to offer. Just to give an example, and this is in no way bashing the creator's work, he has done a stellar job retexturing the entire game. But check out John Capone's textures for Tomb Raider, particularly for the temple area I just mentioned. While it does look impressive, and I suppose more realistic, everything blends together. Perhaps he was implying the temple was in fact built into the very rock face, but the levels lost so much vibrancy and colour that, in my opinion, it's rather drab to look at. Now, of course, this is only comparing one little section of the game, so it is rather unfair to judge the entire texture pack on this part alone, and I'm sure there are many areas that look far better than they ever did with the original textures. But for me, I prefer my levels a bit more on the unrealistic, slightly fantastical side, you know? Oh lordy, off topic again. So where do we get to? Yes, there'll be 3 entrances with only one currently open, which leads to the most random layout you'd ever expect to see in an ancient Peruvian city. I'm guessing it's supposed to be some sort of diving pool area, but how does anyone even reach the jumping boards? I'm guessing only the super acrobatic Incas got to have fun in Vilcabamba. Anyway, make your way up the cowboy builder's job, up the stairs, and you'll come to a room with a lever. After pulling the lever, make your way out of this area by climbing down the rocks, then the roof, and you can go through the second door you opened. Oh look, the cowboy builders have been here too! So climb up again, pull a lever again, and make your way through the third and final entrance. You can see why I'm not a fan of this level. Oh, but no warnings this time, even though there's, swinging axes, a lever trap that drops you into a pit of water, and a friggin' bear waiting to rip Lara to pieces. Nothing to worry about, right? Luckily, this is the final part of the level, and if you're not interested in the last secret, you can just climb out the pool where you first fell in, pull a lever to open the exit door, stick the little gold idol you found earlier in the level into the key slot, and be on your way. And thank God too, because I feel like I've been talking about this place for 84 years and we still have 13 more levels to go. Why do I do this to myself? To brighten my spirits, however, we have my favourite level in the entire of Tomb Raider 1, Lost Valley. And you know why it's my favourite level? Dinosaurs! The level starts you off in a corridor which opens up into a larger cave area, complete with rapid waters and even a waterfall. Falling in said water will wash Lara downstream and down the waterfall itself, which thankfully isn't fatal as you'll end up in a much calmer pool of water. Before you take a dive off a very tall cliff, however, you may notice you can make your way upstream by jumping onto various platforms and climbing up into corridors. While this is necessary for the main objective of the level, There's no real need to come here unless you want to find one of the secrets squirreled away in the back, or you want to get the second weapon of the game, the shotgun. Speaking of weapons, that's something I should have mentioned earlier, there are 4 weapons in total in Tomb Raider 1. Of course, Lara starts off with her signature unlimited ammo pistols, but they're a tad weak, so to compensate you can also find and use the shotgun, the magnums, and the Uzis. If you forget to pick a gun up or don't discover the secret that leads to it, you still have a chance to pick it up in later levels. Or you could just forget about the fancy guns and go for a pistol-only run. Or if you're truly a masochist, a no unnecessary kills run. Yep, they are indeed a thing. People are crazy. Anyway, the shotgun is a very powerful weapon, but is slow to shoot and there isn't a lot of ammo to be found. The magnums, not the ice cream bar, are basically a pair of much better pistols with tons of ammo at Lara's disposal. And finally, the Uzis are an extremely fast-shooting pair of guns which burn through ammo like nobody's business, so use only when necessary. Once you've gracefully fallen down the waterfall and taken out some poor innocent wolves minding their own goddamn business, it's time for the highlight of this level. I mean, let's be honest, does anyone really remember Lost Valley for anything other than the T-Rex? So, the objective of this level. There's a machine way back up the river which is missing 3 cogs. Said machine is necessary to close off the water and stop the waterfall, which in turn allows access to the next level. The cogs can be found in various locations throughout Lost Valley. One in the water at the temple, one atop a climbable rock pile in the cave area, and finally, one across the broken bridge overlooking the valley. They're all very simple to get to and only require a bit of jumping, swimming, and of course avoiding becoming a dinosaur's dinner. To be honest, this is a rather short level if you know what to do, which might explain why it has the most secrets in the entire game. So, collect your cogs, go back to the machine and place them in the relevant slots, pull the lever and ta-da! No more rapids. If you haven't collected the shotgun yet, now would be a good time to do so, otherwise do a fancy dive into the pool below, you know, because it looks cool, climb out into the newly opened entrance, and get ready for the next level, Tomb of Qualopec. Now, I used to despise this level as a kid due to the thinking about it, relatively simple puzzles by today's standards. I was 5 years old, okay? Tomb Raider was really tough for me back then. But yes, Tomb of Qualopec is basically a puzzle level, with 3 puzzles needing to be solved in order to reach the aforementioned Qualopec's throne room. But hang on, I could just walk up this ramp and get there straight away.
Gotcha, bitch!
Yep, it's important to note that, like the animals of Tomb Raider, inanimate objects also harbour a deep hatred for Lara and will seemingly perform the impossible, moving towards her in a rapid fashion with no help from an outside force. Their only intentions are to crush and kill, so best stay out of their way. Once the boulder has returned to its dormant state, you'll notice the gates to Qualopec's throne room are now shut, forcing Lara to find a different route. But it's right there! Heading back into the entrance room, you should be able to find a lever to pull, which will allow access to the next room. The 3 corridors you'll find all lead to a separate puzzle. Man sniffing a donut leads to the block puzzle, the easiest of the 3. Cthulhu hiding behind giant donut is the pit of hungry doggos puzzle with conveniently annoying block in the way. And finally, sad turkey with no donut is the spike and movable pillars puzzle. Each puzzle ends with a lever to pull, which will lift one of the 3 gates I mentioned earlier. The first 2 puzzles take no time at all, but Sad Turkey can be a bit finicky if you don't know the order of lever switching to move the pillars. And of course if you fall headfirst into the spikes. Oh, you! Once all 3 levers are pulled and therefore all 3 gates raised, it's time to acquire the first piece of the Skion. Now, don't be alarmed at the sight you see. It's just long dead Qualopec sat on his throne and 2 mummy statues either side of him. Nothing to worry about. Hang on.
Stop! I could have dropped my croissant!
Make your way back out into the pool area from the previous level and get ready to fight a familiar face. That's right, Natla double-crossed us and you best be taking out Larson before he finishes off Lara. So fill every orifice of Larson with bullet holes and he'll finally go down, triggering a cutscene. Actually 2 cutscenes, one in-game and one pre-rendered. I tell you what, I'ma make a coffee and you guys enjoy the next 2.5 minutes of cutscenes without me. I'll be right back.
Well, you have my total attention now. I'm not quite sure if I've got yours, though. Hello?
I'll heel and hide you to a barn door yet.
Of course.
You and that driveling piece of the Scion. You want to keep it so bad, I'll harness it right up your...
Wait. We're talking about the artifact here?
Damn straight we are, right up.
Hold on. I'm sorry. This piece, you say. Where's the rest?
Miss Natla put Pierre DuPont on that trail.
And where is that?
Ha! You ain't fast enough for him.
So you think all this talking is just holding me up?
I don't know where his little jackrabbit frog legs are running him to. You'll have to ask Miss Natla.
Thank you. I will.
Relocated now to St. Francis's Folly, new temptations torment me. Rumour amongst
my fellow brothers is that entombed beneath our monastery is the body of Teokan, one of the 3 legendary rulers of the lost continent Atlantis, and that with him lies his piece of the Atlantean Scion, a pendant divided and shared between the 3 rulers, which curbs tremendous powers. Powers beyond the Creator himself. My toes sweat at such possibilities, lying so close to my mortal self. Each night, I beat myself rid of these fantasies, but it is indeed a test.
Pierre, you litterbug.
Okay, I'm back, the coffee is piping hot and we're no longer in Peru, having moved on to St. Francis Folly in Greece. Boyek though, would you look at the word count? Right, I'm going to save the rest of this awesome game for a part 2, as I don't want to be talking non-stop for over an hour. I don't think my voice could take it. I really hope you've enjoyed this first part of Tomb Raider History, and if you think there's anything I could improve upon, add to, or even cut out for next time, let me know. As always guys, don't forget to hit the like button as it helps me out immensely, and I'll see you in whatever I play or talk about next. Bye bye! Shout out to supporters Klaxon, Thomas Hinton, Jeffrey Thomas, Razak, Zugador, Ross Ward, Samuel DeBoss, Poplio the Destroyer, and Morendor. Thank you to everyone who supports the channel, whether it's through Patreon, YouTube memberships and donations, or even just turning up to watch every video I release or every stream I do. It means so much to me, so thank you once again from the bottom of my heart. Ta-ta, my lovelies!